In Guatemala, the Constitutional Court warns that it will remove 2 ministers from office if tensions at an important dam in the country are not resolved. In Palestine, the civilian population gathered at the Rafah border and trying to escape the Gaza siege denounced being unsafe and forced to wait for hours without clear answers. And the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations indicated on Monday that the agricultural sector and security worldwide have been affected by the impact of the effects of climate change. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Belén de los Santos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The political and institutional crisis in Guatemala worsens and reaches other levels of the national government. The Constitutional Court warns that it will remove 2 ministers from office if tensions at an important dam in the country are not resolved. The alleged invasion of the El Tesoro Dam, located in Chamaltenango in the east of the country, opened a new front of confrontation between the powers of the state. The Minister of Government, the Minister of National Defense, and the Director of the National Police received a warning from the highest judicial instance of the country to retake control within 6 hours after the notification of the referred dam. The situation has left several areas of the capital without water. And Guatemalan social organizations carry on their rallies for another day, keeping a state of siege in several domestic areas to defend democracy. The siege of roads pursue in the west mainly, whereas the southern coast is free. Authorities informed that dozens of trucks have been stopped. However, demonstrators keep their siege, passing through from time to time. Several organizations announced several rallies on Monday in the country's capital.
We have planned that tomorrow we will leave for the capital city. All the authorities gather here and also our communities in the west of San Juan to continue expressing this rejection. So we ask the people of San Juan for their support. Do not see us as people who are doing something bad, but on the contrary, there are many who would also like to express, but maybe there is not organization or authority to lead them. We have organized our communities in a planned way, so that everything we do is for the good of all.
In Honduras, at least 4 migrants died and 20 others were injured after a bus collapsed northwest of Tegucigalpa. The accident occurred at approximately 4 a.m. local time when the bus took a dangerous curve and fell into the Higuito River on a highway in the western part of the country. It was officially announced that the collective vehicle was heading towards the border of Agua Caliente with migrants on board. The fire department of the region informed that all the injured were taken to health centers to receive the necessary medical attention. In Cuba, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez informed on Monday in his profile on the social network X that on November 1st and 2nd, the United Nations General Assembly will consider the draft resolution on the need to end the blockade against the island. The call of the international community is ignored by the United States.
On November 1st and 2nd this year, the United Nations General Assembly will consider the draft resolution on the necessity to put an end to the blockade against Cuba. The US government has continued to apply a very aggressive surgical design aimed at damaging the most sensitive sectors of the Cuban economy. Since 2019, the US has been escalating the blockade to a significantly more harmful, cruel, and inhuman dimension. Its real impact on Cuban families is a massive, flagrant, and systematic human rights violation.
Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla pointed out that Cuba's continued inclusion on the arbitrary and spurious list of the state sponsors of terrorism aggravates the situation.
At current prices, the damages accumulated after more than 6 decades amount to $159 billion and almost $5 billion last year. That situation has worsened after Cuba's inclusion in the politically motivated, arbitrary and dishonest list of countries sponsors of terrorism, which has an undeniable economic impact. It's a failed, obsolete, unilateral, extraterritorial and genocidal policy. Once again, the government of the United States will be left in isolation by the overwhelming majority of the international community, claiming Cuba's right to live without blockade. Live better, end the embargo.
And let's take a short break. But remember, you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Rescue teams working on Gaza estimate that there are over 1,000 corpses under the debris. Hence, the Interior Ministry raises alert in view of a likely environmental crisis. The ministry spokesperson Eyad Al-Bassoun stated that due to Israel's ongoing attacks, rescue tasks have been hindered. Several volunteers have been murdered, whereas they were trying to save survivors. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry updated the first briefing on the death toll. Following a lethal onslaught between Sunday evening and early Monday, the figure of death amounts to 2,750 and the injured reaches 9,700. Palestinian authorities reported on Monday that Israeli bombardments left at least 80 people killed in the last 24 hours, and the death toll exceeds 2,800 civilians, both in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Authorities in Gaza reported that Israeli fighter jets fired missiles over the Bandar region, leaving more than 50 people dead, most of them women and children. Meanwhile, local media reports details that at least 30 people were killed when Israeli fighter jets fired missiles at homes in Khan Yunis and in western Al-Almah neighborhood. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that with these new attacks, the death toll in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank exceeded the 2,800 victims, and the number of wounded rose to over 10,900. The president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, called on the international community on Monday to take responsibility for the serious humanitarian crisis suffered by thousands in Gaza. The head of state had insisted on his call for a ceasefire and rejected the policies of collective punishment, siege, starvation, and displacement of civilians. He stated this during a meeting with French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna. The spokesman for the presidential office, Ahmed Fahmy, added that both the head of state and the French diplomat agreed on the importance of resolving the Palestinian issue in a just and comprehensive manner. The Egypt National Security Council reaffirmed that a Palestinian state is the only solution to the crisis. Meanwhile, in Palestine, the civilian population gathering at the Rafah border, urging to leave the blockaded enclave, expressed their frustrations. Palestinians pointed out they wait for hours to be attended by the authorities. They also asserted that travel is not safe and demand clear information about the process for travel. The Rafah border crossing, or Rafah crossing point, is the sole crossing point between Egypt and the Gaza Strip.
We come to the border crossing every day. We contact the embassy every day, and they tell us to go to the crossing. We wait for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and then we go back. The journey is not safe. That is not truth. We move amid danger. We wish for this problem to be solved and to be given clear information so that we can travel. I've been coming and living for 3 days. I want to reunite with my children. Half of my children are in Saudi Arabia, and the other half are with me here. I want to go to Saudi to reunite with my children. I appeal our brothers in Egypt and the Egyptian government to help us, me and others like me from everywhere in the world, to go back to our countries and our children.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has reiterated his call to Israeli authorities to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. He also appealed to the Hamas organization to initiate a coordinated release of hostages. The diplomat assured that the region is on the brink of the abyss and insists on humanitarian appeals. He detailed that they have sufficient stocks of food, water, medical supplies, and fuel in Egypt, Jordan, and the West Bank and Israel that can be sent in a matter of hours to the enclave. The agency's Humanitarian Affairs Office added that for the past week, Israel has not allowed supplies to enter Gaza. The foreign ministers of China, Iran, and Turkey held telephone talks in recent hours with the view of resolving the crisis between Israel and Palestine. The Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian has asked his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi to intervene so that Israel puts an end to the killing of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. The Chinese top diplomat assured that the priority at this moment is to de-escalate the situation to avoid an even worse catastrophe than the one that has already left hundreds of women and children dead. For his part, the foreign minister of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, supported his Chinese counterpart by assuring that it is imperative to reach a ceasefire and reject the punitive measures of Israel. On Sunday, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas received a telephone call from his Venezuelan counterpart, Nicolás Maduro. They discussed the latest difficult development in the Palestinian territories. President Abbas stressed the need to immediately stop the Israeli aggression against the Palestinian people, provide them with protection, and allow the urgent opening of humanitarian corridors to the Gaza Strip, and provide the population with medical supplies, water, electricity, and fuel. Abbas renewed his total rejection of the displacement of the people of the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, Maduro stressed that his government demands an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of humanitarian corridors to assist the population, as well as the re-establishment of international legality through compliance with the resolutions of the UN and respect to the commitments of the parties in each of the negotiations carried out. And we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, where you will be able to re-watch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date with the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Monday, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO, indicated that the agricultural sector and security have been affected by the impact of the effects of climate change. According to the report published by the organization, climate change has caused losses of at least $3.8 trillion in the agricultural sector, thus compromising the food supply of the citizens. Asia is also the most affected region globally, with more than $116 billion lost, equivalent to 5% of the annual agricultural gross domestic product. These impacts are expected to intensify, further intensifying social and environmental vulnerabilities. In Afghanistan, a new 6.3 magnitude earthquake shook the city of Herat, leaving at least 50 people injured on Sunday. The earthquake occurred 1 hour after an aftershock shook the north of Herat province, and a 6.3 earthquake occurred in the same province a week ago on October 7th. Taliban government officials estimate that more than 2,000 people across Herat province perished in the quake, and more than 90% were women and children, according to the UN agencies and officials on the ground. The civil protection authorities are in place attending the emergency while confirming the death of 2 people. In this context, residents moved to other regions of the country due to the earthquakes that have occurred. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi received his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Monday, who is visiting the Asian nation in preparation for the International Forum of the Belt and Road. The diplomats exchanged views on bilateral issues and on the upcoming visit of President Vladimir Putin to Beijing. On the subject, the Chinese foreign minister stated that the presence of the Russian president at the International Forum will make a very important contribution and promote strategic interaction between the two countries. The foreign minister also discussed regional and global issues. And China began welcoming representatives from 130 countries on Monday for an international conference marked by the war between Israel and Gaza. Russian President Vladimir Putin heads the guest list for the forum, which will begin on Tuesday on the so-called Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, a global infrastructure development program promoted by Beijing. Putin's trip will be his first to a major world power since the start of the armed conflict in Ukraine. The BRI, which began a decade ago, is President Xi Jinping's key project to extend China's global reach, which he hopes the forum will help boost. However, the summit will be marked by Israel's war with Hamas since the Islamist movement attack that left more than 1,400 people dead, mostly civilians. In Poland, politicians and former President of the European Council Donald Tusk could take the post of Prime Minister again. Tusk claimed his landslide victory after disclosing the election polls, which places the governor of Liberty and Justice Party as the most voted, but not counting on the majority to continue in the government. Exit polls provide 36.8% of the votes for governor's party, which would be translated in 200 parliamentarians out of 460 seats. The opposition parties altogether would count up 248 seats, and the three groups proved to have affinity in a campaign posed with an opposition against the ruling party. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.